Yo, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy Zeta here, back at it again to drop the finale for What If Deku Was Spider-Man. Now, this series was very dope, and honestly, I didn't even think I was going to be getting to the finale this soon. However, with the way that I wrote myself, not myself, but I wrote the story, it's going to have a very interesting finale, and I hope that you guys will enjoy this part. If you did enjoy the story, make sure you guys leave a big old like on this video, just due to the fact that it'll help the video do more better, and it'll just make your boy happy. As well as leave a comment down below, share the video with a friend, and let me know what you guys thought about the series overall. I will be dropping a movie version of this series very soon. So, if you guys could do me a favor and go click on the video, maybe, click on it 2 times to give it 2 views. But if you guys can do me that favor, then, it'd be very much appreciated. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so we start our story off right where we had left off on the last part. At this point, Deku had barely just landed there, and he would look towards All Might, as he would immediately grab All Might, who was actually about to get hit with a huge attack. He would swing out of that direction, and he would then look towards All Might, as he would say, "All Might, I'm here." All Might would look towards Deku, as he would say, "What are you doing here, kid?" Deku would look at All Might and say, "Look, I know we're not on the best terms right now, but you need my help, and I can't let you die, All Might." All Might would look towards Deku as he would say, "Kid, I don't know about this." And Deku would just look at All Might as he would say, "You have to trust me." This is when All For One would shoot another attack at them, a wind pressure one, to which Deku would create a prison he would use his metal webbing to create a little bit of a barrier between them, which would block the entirety of the attack. And Deku would then look towards All Might as he would say, "All Might, we can't do this if there's no trust. You have to trust me. It's the only way we're going to defeat this guy." All Might would look towards Deku as he would say, "All right, I trust you." We would then have Deku smile as he would grab onto Deku's hand and say, "All right then, All Might, get ready." He would swing All Might at All For One, as All For One would put both of his arms in front of him in an X position. He would then block the attack from All Might, as All Might would then say, "United States of Smash!" And it's at this point that All For One would block the attack by contesting it with his own blow. They would both be going back and forth like over and over as they were in the anime. And this is when Deku would immediately turn invisible, as it's at this point that Deku would decide that he needs to surround the area quickly. He would create a giant sort of dome around them with metal webbing, which would actually cover the entire area. And this is when Deku would smile and go invisible. After, he would create a bunch of webs all over the floor to have it so that he makes absolutely no noise, and he would appear behind All For One, as this is when Deku would just appear behind All For One, look at All Might and say, "Get out of here." As All Might would get away from the blow, he would be able to dodge it. His arm would end up being almost fully destroyed, and Deku would then immediately just say, "Hey." As All For One would turn towards Deku's direction, immediately Deku would use all of the volts of electricity that he can. He would have ended up coating himself with a layer of electricity on his hand, and he would have just let it all out on All For One, which would immediately just obliterate All For One. He would be atomized from that, and this is when All For One's body would just drop straight to the ground. He was done for. This means that Shigaraki will not be getting All For One, therefore he's never going to be a threat later on. Now, and it's at this point that all this is going down, that the news is broadcasting everything that's going down. As everything has been happening, the Goblin would actually be on his TV at Oscorp. He would have seen everything that just went down. And after he sees all of this, he would smile as he begins to go to his chamber and start getting suited up. After this, Deku would take down the webbing that was around him, holding everything away. And Deku would then grab All Might as he would pick him up and help him get onto his feet. He would then hold up All Might's hand as All Might would lift up his fist while, leaning on Deku. Deku would then smile as his mask thing, like his little mask area, would all be gone. And Deku would have the mask area down as MJ would be watching the situation. She'd be smiling, thinking that he did it. She's proud of him. As Deku would then tell All Might he can just sit down if he wants, as All Might would say, "No, he would put his fist back up, and this is when a bunch of people would begin to surround them. A bunch of people around the area would then start coming all over the place, and they would begin to cheer for All Might and Deku all around the world. You could hear people screaming Deku's name, people screaming for All Might, and people just saying that Deku's going to be an amazing hero. A lot of people are having great thoughts about Deku, and it's at this point that they're honestly just having a good time. For about 7 minutes or so, everything was good, and Deku and All Might are just kind of standing there. All Might had to exhaust less energy, but All Might is still, well, basically on his last legs. And All Might would have already turned into a Small Might form, revealing to the entire world and population that All Might can no longer be the symbol of peace. And after he does that, All Might would grab Deku's hand as he would lift his arm up and say that this is the next symbol of peace. Deku would look towards All Might as he would smile at his direction, and Deku would pass out immediately. And it's at this moment that a tiny little bomb would come in out of nowhere. It would beep, and Deku's spider senses would kick in at the last moment. As the bomb would almost blow up the helicopter, Deku would have shot a web at it and deflected it right back at the Goblin, who would have came in flying on his little propeller thing. Little jet thing that he used. I don't know what it's called. It's the Goblin, the Goblin rider or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, Deku would have ended up stopping it. And this is when Deku would look at him as immediately his eyes would get filled with rage, and he would not be able to control himself. They would begin the fight. Deku would lunge at the Goblin as he would throw blow after blow, with the Goblin simply laughing and catching one of his hands. He would then begin to crush Deku's fist, to which Deku would then kick him right in the leg, breaking it. Bending his knee inwards, the Goblin would shriek out in pain as Deku would then be let go by his hand. He would then start to surround him with a bunch of black webbing, to which the Goblin would then start getting restrained, but he would rip it off. And Deku would then say, "Here's Johnny." Just kidding, he wouldn't say that, but seriously though, he would shoot a bunch of acid webbing at the Goblin, which would actually end up destroying part of the suit. He would have ended up blowing off the mask, which would end up revealing that the person behind the Goblin mask is Osborn himself. Deku at this point would see that he's no longer afraid of him. The Goblin isn't some abnormal being, it's a person. Just like him. It's Osborn. Immediately he would be filled with so much confusion, and the Goblin would stand up as he would look towards Deku's direction and say, "Bet you didn't expect this, kid." He would then begin to laugh in a creepy way. As Deku would look at him, he would fall back, and he would then wonder why. The Goblin would look at him and he would say, "Because of you." He would then say that it was you, wasn't it? That day when the spider went missing, that was you. Deku would look at him as he would act as if he doesn't know what he's talking about. But the Goblin would then say that it's your fault. It's your fault that everything turned out this way. As Deku would look at him, he would then say he doesn't know what he's talking about. And the Goblin would then look at him and start laughing evilly as he would then say that he knows it was him. He saw it on the cameras. And it all barely started to get pieced together. Before, he thought that it was just his own mistake. But he finally put the pieces together. Those abilities that he has, that's not a quirk. It's not a quirk at all. It was my invention. My creation which gave you those powers. And now, it's me who's gonna take it away. He would look towards Deku as he would immediately punch Deku, sending him flying into a building, to which Deku would create webbing right behind him to catch himself and kind of tank the blow. Afterwards, Deku would get propelled right back at the Goblin, to which the Goblin would greet him with another punch straight to the jaw. He would uppercut him, sending him into the sky. The Goblin would then send his jet thing up at Deku as it would go over there, and some spikes would come in out of nowhere as Deku would immediately realize what's going on. He would catch it before it can stab into him, and he would flip it in the air as Deku would then get on top of it, and the Goblin would smile as he would say, "That's perfect." He would start basically making the thing go crazy and haywire, as this is when Deku would realize that if he fights the Goblin with anger and fear in his heart, he'll never be able to beat him. This is when Deku would basically grab his webbing as he would fling the thing all the way to the ground. It would get destroyed, but this is when the Goblin would press a button on his armor, which would have another one literally fly in about 20 seconds later. And he would then get on top of it as Deku and he would begin to fight all around the city. That area which they were at, they're not there anymore. Now they're fighting from rooftop to rooftop, just going at it back and forward. As Deku would land hits, the Goblin would as well, and they would both just be going at it like completely like animals. There was no clear-cut winner. Deku's fear, it was gone. He realized that it was just a man, and he always has known, but the feeling of not knowing who's under that mask just brings a little bit of just unease into the room, I guess you could say. But after realizing that it was somebody just like him who can bleed, Deku's fear, it would have been gone. Now he just needs to stop feeling as if he's weaker than him. And now this is when it'll finally click in. Deku's senses would go haywire, and this is when he would finally unlock his perception of future sight even further than what he had before. It's at this point that Deku can now see a full 30 seconds into the future, and this is when he would see that the Goblin is about to pierce him from behind with another one of those devices. As it would come in to almost pierce him, but right at the last second, Deku would jump over it as it would penetrate straight inside of the Goblin. And at that moment, immediately, Deku would blitz the Goblin. As he would have ended up going so fast, the Goblin just couldn't react to the speed. Deku would have coated himself in a layer of electricity, as well as a layer of a venom symbiote around himself. And Deku would literally just go over to the Goblin and push the little, oh my god, I really need to know what that thing's called. The glider. Yeah, it's a glider. I'm so dumb. The fact that I haven't looked that up this whole time, like, I honestly just could have done that before. But he would shove the glider deeper into Osborn as he would let out 100 million volts onto him. And that is when the Goblin would just be atomized. There would be no more cells left to regenerate. He was done. Deku at this point would pass out, and this is when a helicopter would come from above. It would beam its light onto Deku, and they would pick him up and take him out to the hospital. And this is when people would start basically just looking at Deku, and all people from all around the world would start viewing Deku as a hero. The kid was nothing but a student, but already he risked his entire life to save them. He didn't have to do that. He wasn't even sure if he could win. The last time that happened, it was almost done for. But he did it. People would begin to cheer all around the world, and they would go haywire, dude. They'd be hype. But all that aside, Deku would basically wake up the very next day, and on his bedside, he would see his mother Inko and MJ, his classmates even Bakugo was standing there, and they're all smiling there, except for Bakugo. He kind of has his arms crossed, and he's just like, I didn't want to be here, nerd. He would say, maybe if you were stronger, you would have never had to do all those things. As Deku would laugh and say, yeah, Bakugo, whatever. This is when Bakugo would kind of just be like, huh. And this is when MJ would hug Deku tightly, as Inko would do that as well. And Deku would say, my ribs, as they would both be like, oh yeah, sorry about that. Inko would then slap Deku across the face, and she would say, if you ever do that again, she'll kill him. As Deku would say, yeah, sorry about that, Mom. And Inko would then start smiling as she would begin to hug Deku even tighter. This is when Deku would slowly start getting up, and he would just start realizing that MJ is standing. He would say, how are you? Wait, what happened? As she would basically look towards his direction and say that she was healed by Recovery Girl. Recovery Girl, after she woke up the very next day, that same morning, she ended up using her quirk on her to speed up the healing process. And her with the ability of being able to shapeshift, she kind of helped out with a lot of the healing which came with all the other stuff. And after Deku hears that, he would smile. As it's at this point that Deku starts taking off the little hospital gown, and All Might would walk inside the room. As he would walk inside and say, I am here. As he would look towards Deku's direction and say, guys, can you guys please step outside for a moment? As everybody would look at All Might, they would understand what he means. And he would then look towards Deku, as Deku would say, hey, All Might. All Might would look at him as he would transform into his buff state and then cough out blood. He would then be like, yeah, I probably won't be able to do that again. As Deku would laugh at All Might's expense, All Might would then start laughing as well. And he would then look towards Deku as he would say that he needs to tell him something. Although what he did back there in the USJ wasn't right, he has more than made up for it by stopping the Goblin and helping him take out one of the world's greatest villains, All for One. He talked to the Japan Council, and they believe that it's right for Deku to be allowed to come back into UA, just as long as he never does anything like that ever again. Deku would look at All Might as he would then say, wait, you did that for me? As All Might would look at Deku, he would then say, sure did, kid. Deku would hug All Might as he would then tell him that, he was his hero for a reason. All Might would then laugh, and he would then basically be told that he better not be late to school tomorrow. As Deku would say, wait, we gotta go for school? Already? All Might would say, yeah. I mean, you're fighting against time constantly. Don't you remember Aizawa telling you that? All Might would then start chuckling, and Deku would then say, yeah. As All Might would basically just smile, he would then say, all right, don't be late. We have the provisional license exams tomorrow. Deku would smile, and this is when All Might would leave, letting MJ and Inko come back into the room. Deku and MJ would kind of just be talking for the next couple of hours. Deku would then heal, and they would then go over to MJ's house as they would basically have a movie night. And the very next day would be the provisional hero license exam. Now, in this version of events, everything is kind of I guess you could say. Let's see, how long has this recorded been? It's been 14 minutes long. I guess I can cover the provisional license. Anyways, all right, let's see. So basically they all go on the bus as the provisional license happened, and this time when the kid that looks like Deku walks in, everybody looks at him and they all immediately are just like, yeah, this kid's definitely faking it. Deku would have been the first one to notice, just due to the fact that he could see 30 seconds into the future and saw when Bakugo called him out on his stuff. Now he would walk up and he would basically look towards MJ's direction as he would grab her hand and go in and kiss it, but Deku would immediately just grab him by the face, literally palm his face, and he would then push him back into his classmates as they would all run away basically. After this is when Shiketsu High kids would pull up, and they would all basically just start greeting each other. Inasa would obviously bang his head on the ground just in some normal Inasa fashion. He'd basically look at all the students and he'd just be like, hello, UA kids. He would look at all of them and he'd be pretty chill just because Inasa's a pretty nice guy, but this one he would look at Shoto and he would get angry. Also, by the way, one thing that I did forget to mention is that Todoroki in this version has never gotten over his ability to use the fire. He's never had that thing, so he still only uses his ice. Also, one thing to add, Bakugo ended up winning the sports festival, so they're all looking at Bakugo's direction as kind of the strongest one, but others are looking at Deku just due to the fact that he fought alongside All Might and even took down the Goblin. That fight was broadcasted and it has 1 million hits, dude. Everybody's watching that fight. That thing's popping, dude. Like, imagine watching a Spider-Man Deku versus Goblin, dude. That thing would be awesome. Like, if this fight was animated, that thing would be so clean. But anyways, that being said though, they would all go inside. They would be explained their little task with the balls and stuff like that, or they have to hit their targets, and they all have 3 lives that they have to get out 6 people. They would all go outside and they would basically start doing that, as people would of course do the targeting of class 1A, and they would basically not even be affected. Deku would literally create a dome around them with metal webbing, and as soon as all the balls hit, Deku would immediately pull it all back, as Deku would then start shooting acid webbing at all of the people's direction, causing them to all think that they were going to get burned. But in reality, Deku literally put the acidity level all the way down, so it literally felt as if it was just water. And as that happened, Deku would have literally blitzed over there and just started touching each and every single one of their little life things. He touched each one of them 3 times, so he ended up racking up about, let's see, 300 points. 300 points in less than a second. That's how OP this Deku is. And you got a problem with it, then my apologies. But anyways, that being said, Deku would do that, and this is when the rest of the license exam would happen. Todoroki and Inasa would end up failing due to the fact that they don't like each other, and the rest of the exam would basically go as it did in canon. Everybody would kind of get good scores. Deku would actually be able to take out Gang Orca swiftly too. It's not even like a hard victory. Deku literally claps Gang Orca as if it was nothing. And now we move on to when they all go back to class and they are all greeted by the big 3 of UA. Immediately when they walk inside, Mirio would walk up to Deku as we would say, hey. Deku would look at Mirio and he'd say, what's up? As Mirio would look at Deku, he would basically proceed to explain to him that, he saw him on the news. He saw that All Might lifted his hand and told him he was great as well. And All Might said that that's awesome. He can't wait to work with him someday. Deku would look at Mirio as he would say, yeah. It's same, as Deku was just in a good mood. He could tell that Mirio was a genuine person. He had a pretty good liking to Mirio. And this one, all of them would try to explain that they basically need more experience. But Mirio, of course being Mirio, would end up basically challenging challenging them all to a fight, and this basically leads to all of Class 1A fighting against Mirio. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, all of them literally get clapped except for Bakugo, who was actually able to dodge the first hit, but when Mirio did the poking eye thing, Bakugo was done for. Like, that was GG. And when it comes to Deku, when Mirio tried to hit Deku, Deku literally could see right past time. He knows about his permeation just due to that fact. And when Mirio tries to come up and punch Deku and say power, Deku would actually be able to avoid it. Now, Deku would literally just sidestep the blow and punch Mirio in the gut one time, causing Mirio to get flung straight out of the wall. Mirio would get knocked out immediately, and this is when Deku would basically just think that that's pretty much it. The rest of the big three would explain to everybody that all they're basically lacking is experience, except for that one up there. As, you know, what's her name? Nejire would say that to Deku. Deku would say, yeah, he appreciates it. And MJ at this point, she basically would have also gotten clapped by Mirio. Deku would go up to her and ask her if she's okay, and she would say that she is. As it's at this point that Deku and MJ are basically walking home, but as they do, from the floor, Deku could see a face pop up. As Deku would say, Mirio, is that you? Mirio would pop up and say, hey, I was wondering if you wanted to come with Sir Nighteye for your agency. As Deku would say, wait, that's the hero who can see, wait, he's the one who has foresight, right? Mirio would say, yeah. Deku would say, I'd love to work with him. Mirio would basically look at Deku and say, well, we have a deal then. As Deku would say, sure, we sure do. Mirio would then look towards Deku as he would say, all right, then I'll see you at the train station tomorrow. Deku would say, you definitely will. And Deku would then go off with MJ as he would do a little bit of late night studying. You feel that vibe? Afterwards, you know, he'd basically go over to meet up with Mirio the very next day, and this is when he would arrive at Sir Nighteye's agency, to which, you know, events basically go as if you would expect them to. Events all kind of go as you would expect them all to go in the original story. Deku would arrive with Mirio. They would see Bubble Girl and Sir Nighteye over there looking all glum and all this stuff. And Mirio would tell Deku all he has to do is make him laugh. When they arrive, Deku isn't actually able to make Sir Nighteye laugh. However, when he presents him with the little challenge of getting the stamp, Deku can see what Sir Nighteye is going to do. So immediately upon the first try, Deku just speed blitzes Sir Nighteye, like leaving Sir Nighteye 0 ways to block Deku. And after that, he would basically begin to tell Deku that they're going to do a little bit of training for about 30 minutes. To which he would begin to ask Deku how many seconds he can see into the future. Deku would explain that he can only see about 30 seconds into the future currently. He doesn't know if that's his maximum or if it'll ever get bigger than that, just due to the fact that he's never tried. However, you know, okay, that was weird. I was trying to like purposefully voice crack, but like I don't know, I just couldn't do it. But anyways, Deku would then basically proceed to just train a little bit with Sir Nighteye, and this is when Sir Nighteye would basically look towards Deku as he would look at Mirio and tell him that they're gonna go out and do a little bit of patrol. This leads to Mirio and Deku walking outside. However, in this version, when they actually end up running into Eri, Deku does not at all like be afraid of what's called Overhaul. Deku immediately jumps into action as he would turn invisible with Overhaul getting on guard, but Deku within that split second would have jumped from wall to wall and kicked Overhaul in the back of the head so hard that Overhaul literally just dropped. Like, he dropped like a bag of potatoes, and Deku then proceeded to go over to Overhaul, cuff him with handcuffs, and take him to the police station, where they basically confiscated his quirk destroying bullets, and they would end up finding out more about his operation. This leads to the the little takedown of the villains. I forgot what it was called, the Overhaul Raid arc. Yeah, the Overhaul Raid. And they would end up saving Eri without any problems at all. Eri would never have to go through any of the events with Mirio losing his quirk. And since Mirio was even stronger due to the fact that he has One for All, he would have actually been able to take down Overhaul if he wanted himself. But Deku just acted faster than Mirio could. That being said, this basically leads to Deku being a sort of big brother figure to Eri. And Inko actually ends up adopting Eri. That's a little good thing that comes from this story. Deku would take her to the UA Sports Festival, and he would be like a little bit of a big brother to her, with MJ liking Eri as well. And this is when the gentle criminal stuff would happen. Deku would end up whooping that man, and this basically leads us to the very last thing to cover, the joint training arc. In this version, when the joint training arc starts, the team is basically going to be as it was in the original timeline. I believe that Deku was going up against Shinso, Monoma, and who else was he going up against? I kind of remember some, but like I don't remember all of them. Let's see. Deku was with Ochako, Mina, and Mineta versus Shinso, the girl with the weird mask, the short kid, the girl with the red outfit, and Monoma. Yeah, I don't know all of their names. They're 1B students. I mean, who cares about 1B students? But yeah, in this version, Deku would literally just tell Uraraka to make all of them weightless, to which she would. And Deku would carry them all with a substance that kind of looks like Black Whip. Immediately, Deku would shoot the black venom substance all over the arena, and he would capture Shinso and Monoma, each and every single one of them, throwing them each into the cage, and they basically end up GGing everybody. This is when Deku, at the end of everything, just gets praised by everybody just like usual, and we basically end off our story with Deku smiling. Deku would look up at the sky, look at MJ, and just think that his life's great, and that it is. Anyways, let me know what you guys thought about this story down below in the comments. In case any of you guys are wondering what happens to Shigaraki or the Liberation Army, they basically end up getting taken out later on in the story when Deku becomes a pro hero and the Liberation Army finally begins to act up. This, however, is basically where we are going to be ending the story for What If Deku Was Spider-Man. I hope you guys did enjoy the story, just due to the fact that the story is pretty lit. You know, it's a pretty dope story. What If Deku Was Spider-Man had one of the dopest stories that I think I've ever made. Like, I thought it was pretty dope. You know, it started off with Deku being a little bit of a nerd. He grew some confidence. You know, he and Baku had a little bit of a rivalry. Deku got with MJ. And, you know, he just became a great hero. Then he went astray. He had a little bit of a vigilante arc. He came back and came back better than ever. And honestly, I just like the way that I made this story overall. Let me know what you guys thought down below in the comments. Blue Keith, man, I appreciate you for the commission. And in case you want any more, you know where to find me. That being said, though, guys, I love each and every single one of you guys. It has been your boy Zether, and I am out. Peace.